One of the benefits of living in a newer neighborhood is the privilege of not having to buy an alarm clock. Because as soon as the sun comes up, you're going to hear beep, beep, beep of the trucks backing up and the ground starting to shake, and you just don't have to set an alarm clock because you're going to get woken up every single morning, nice and early. Now, my kids would tell you one of the benefits is there's always a pile of dirt to play in. And they can go out and get dirty and have fun in the mud. And so living in a construction zone has its advantages. Some people think that the opposite of construction is also fun. One of the popular terms in Christianity today is deconstruction. And it's simply the idea that we're going to deconstruct our faith. We're going to break it down. We're going to tear down what we have been taught or what we've learned. And I would honestly say we probably as Christians should evaluate what we believe. We should deconstruct our faith so that we can build it back up. The problem is a lot of people today, when it comes to deconstruction, there is no reconstruction, and that's just destruction. And that is not helpful for anybody. And so deconstruction without reconstruction is destruction. And so with those things, we need to say, all right, we've got to move beyond that. We don't need just to tear down. We are called to build up. We're not called just to break things apart, but we're called to build in such a way that we honor God. And that includes our faith. And I would say, and I would argue that every single person in this room today is on a faith journey. A path to figure out what they believe and where they are in relationship to God. Now, there may be some people in here today who are far, 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 far away from God, and you're running as far as you can get from Him. And you may know people who are choosing to not have a relationship, and they don't want anything to do with God, and that there's a reality to that. But those people, if that's you or if that's someone you know, they are still on a faith journey. They're just headed in the wrong direction. Some of you have been walking with Jesus for a long time, and you have grown closer to Him over time. And that's a great thing, but you will notice as you look back on your journey that you've been with Jesus, I would argue there are probably times where you felt like you were closer to Him and times where He maybe not been, He felt as close. Whether that's because of your disobedience or because of your circumstances, we walk through these times where it's up and down. And so everybody's on a faith journey. Where we are all at is probably dependent on who we are and where we're at in that moment. But we're all on a journey to faith, whether we're running from it, in the thick of it, or just walking beside Jesus. So when we think about our faith path, someone said a long time ago to me that's always stuck out to me, when you're on that faith journey, that place where you are walking with Jesus or following after Jesus or trying to seek Him, you're always going to be in one of three places when it relates to the storms. You are either in the middle of a storm, you've just come out of a storm, or you're about to go into a storm. There's no other option. They're always preparing for the storms because the storms always come. In a path, we can't control the weather that happens. Sometimes we get to walk in sunny days, and sometimes it's just pouring dogs and cats outside. Like, we can't control that, but we're just called to be on the path that we're given to us. And when I think about storms, and we had a nice storm this week in my house, I will say if you're praying for me to have great sermon illustrations, please stop. I don't need more sermon illustrations and storms in my life. But we're still dealing with the after effects of a lot of hail damage on our house. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not going to talk about it because I can't keep, I'm going to move on because I'm still in the middle of a storm. But we're all in storms at some point. And one of the storms I just want to share, it's been some time and I can talk about it now a lot more easily, is some of you know that our son Zach is 10 years cancer-free this past week. And that's a great thing. We celebrated this weekend and did all the things that he wanted to do and went to the places he wanted to go. And no one wants to go through cancer. And no one wants to deal with hard times. But when Zach was diagnosed at 7 months old of having cancer, that's not something any parent wants to hear. And I always ask Zach's permission, is it okay if I talk about this? I don't want to tell your story, but for Zach, he doesn't have a cancer story. He only knows life without cancer because he has survived it and he has moved beyond it. But for Natalie and me, to walk through that as parents of a 7-month-old, that was a hard storm. And it was, I'll say, even a quick storm. Zach was diagnosed on Monday, and he was cancer-free by Friday because they removed the cancer. But that he has continued to be monitored, and we've gone through ups and downs, but to go through everything of those emotions in a week that we did was very, very difficult. It was very, very hard. And I remember one of the early things one of the doctors asked us and said, we've got a couple options of what we can do for Zach, of where we can send him. We can send him to this hospital that's close, or we can send him to this one's a little farther away, but it's the best hospital. I don't know what he was asking because it really wasn't a choice for us. Do you want to go to the best hospital or the closest hospital? Well, let me think about that. Yes, best would be great. And so we were referred to St. Jude in Memphis. Is a great organization, and we are a place we are very close to our hearts and dear to our hearts because it has done so much for our family and for so many families. But Zach was sent to St. Jude on Monday, and he went through all his tests and everything and came out on Friday after a long week, and they removed the cancer. And he has never had to go through chemo, never had to have any other treatments. He gets to go back and have as much life as a kid as he had, but it hasn't impacted Zach because Zach has always known that. It's impacted the way that Natalie and I parent, though. It's changed the way we do things. Some people will look at you and think, well, why would you do that with your kids? Because when you realize you can lose your child at any moment as a 7-year-old, you probably live life a little bit differently because of it. And so you make different choices. There's storms that come, whether it's cancer, struggling with selling a house, or damage to your new house. Storms come. But it doesn't matter when storms come because Jesus is the same. Today we're looking at a story of a father that he was at the end of his rope. He didn't know what else to do because he knew if he didn't get help for his son was going to die. He was struggling. He said, I need to find someone. And he turned to the only person he thought would have a chance for helping his son. And that was Jesus. A father searching for answers, willing to do whatever it takes, leads us to John chapter 4, verses 46 through 54. And here's what it says in this story. So he, talking about Jesus, came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water into wine. And at Capernaum, where there was an official whose son was ill, when this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The official said to him, Sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, Go, your son will live. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. And as he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour in which he began to get better, and he said to them, Yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. The father knew that that was the hour when Jesus had said to him, Your son will live. And he himself believed, and all his household. This was now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. A father who is on a faith journey. He is trying to figure out, what do I believe? We don't know if he's a Jewish man, a Gentile man. We know he's a noble man. He is an official, probably high up in King Herod's workings of this inner courtroom, and somebody who is well respected. He's used to getting his way. And he is probably, with an official abilities, with nobility that comes with that, he had a lot of resources at his disposal. He had the opportunity to use a lot of resources to get his son better. But none of those things had worked. And so he heard about this man who had turned water into wine. He had heard about this miracle. He said, maybe there's a chance there. And so in this passage, we see a progression of faith. Moving from one step to another is a full spectrum of different types that are displayed. Each step along the way is another step further down the path that is a path of constructing faith. And when we look at ourselves and evaluate ourselves, we can find ourselves somewhere along this path. I think it's important for us to look at that because we want to construct faith that will last. That's what this man was doing. Now, constructing faith is an important aspect. Construction is a hard process. It's an important process to get the steps in order, correct? If you're putting together a bed and you're wanting it to stay together and not fall apart, especially if it's a bunk bed that's going to be up high and you know your son's going to want you to crawl up in it sometimes, you really want that bed to be sturdy. Can I tell you what you should not do in that case? You should not turn to the very last page and say, all right, we're going to start right here. It is very important that you go to page 1 and you make sure that you read all of page 1. And then when you go from page 1, you don't flip to page 537 automatically because there are 537 steps in this bed. You got to go to page 2. And you want to make sure that you follow every single step correctly, because if you don't follow every single step correctly, you're going to get to page 537 and realize when you're putting that last screw in, on step number 1, that board was supposed to be turned the other direction. That did not happen to me because I followed directions well, all right? Just saying, so it's good. But it is important because you want to follow those instructions. You want to make sure that you build upon that, and there's a progression that happens. In our faith journey, there's a progression. And you can start in step 1, but you can also skip some steps. But the important part is to recognize and realize where you are at on this journey. Where are you in your faith journey? The first step we see in verse 48, skip ahead a little bit, is, so Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. See, Jesus is talking directly to this nobleman, to this man, this official. But what he is saying is not directed at him. He's saying, unless you. Now, the word you there is, in the Greek, a plural word. It's more of a southern word, I would like to say. If it was me who was translating this and was speaking this, I would say, unless y'all. Good southern word right there. Because it's not just directed at the official. He's not saying unless you specifically. He's saying, hey, y'all, all of you, the people who are surrounding you listening, this is who I'm addressing. Unless y'all see signs and wonders, you will not believe. See, there is a bunch of people who have gathered there who are curious. There's a curious faith. They are surrounding Jesus. They're there because they've heard he's done great things, and they are there because they want to see some more signs and miracles. They want to see what God is doing. They want to see these things that they think that, who is this person? And there's curiosity that goes along with that. See, he was saying, it is not for you to see signs, your curiosity to be fulfilled. That is not what he was trying to do. He was doing signs so that he can make a difference. See, curiosity is not a bad thing. The problem is when curiosity is the only thing. If you're driving down the interstate and you see an accident, we're all very curious people, right? That's why every time I head through that S-curve on Highway 70, and there's somebody on the side of the road, what does everybody do? They slow down. They turn their head the other way. If we just all keep going the same speed, we could be fine. We could all get home a lot quicker, but we're curious people. And when we see an accident, we see someone on the side of the road, we slow down, we look. How many of us ever stop, though, to actually help? See, curiosity is not a bad thing unless curiosity is the only thing. I remember driving home one day, back roads in Georgia, and I knew where I was going. I knew where the roads went. And I was watching the car and the lights in front of me, and all of a sudden I was like, I thought the road turned there. But that car in front of me did not turn. It just kept going straight, and I'm sure the road turns there. And so I start to slow down because I was curious. And I get a little bit closer, I see, yes, the road does turn. I was right. That car did not turn. There's now a broken fence there with a car sticking out. And I had a choice. Do I stop and help, or do I just keep driving and be curious? And stopped, and I was going to pick up my food. I was hungry, but I made a choice to say, all right, I probably need to stop and help and say, there is curiosity, and that's an okay thing, but curiosity should lead to us helping, to impacting those around us, to taking time out of our schedule, out of what we're doing to say, all right, we need to pause and make a difference. See, curiosity is not a bad thing in its own, but curiosity by itself is not good. See, that's what the people around this man were. They were curious, but they weren't really trying to get invested. They were just there for a show. They didn't want Jesus to actually make a difference in their life. They were wanting Jesus to change their circumstances without actually changing them. That's not how Jesus works. See, everyone's curious, but very few people want to get involved. People are looking for signs and miracles, but see, Jesus is Lord in the amazing and in the average. Jesus is Lord in the big and in the barren. Jesus is Lord in the comfortable and in the challenging. Jesus is Lord when it takes effort and when it is easy. Jesus is Lord when it is great and when it is gross. Jesus is Lord when there is a miracle and when it is the mundane. Jesus is Lord when it is spectacular and when it's simple. See, Jesus is Lord no matter what. He is Lord over all. Circumstances do not change who he is. And so we see that there is a bunch of people around who are curious of faith. But specifically, we see a man who is in a crisis of faith. He is having a crisis of faith, verses 46 and 47. So Jesus came again to Cana of Galilee, where he had made the water into wine at Capernaum. There was an official whose son was ill. When this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. He came to him and saw, I am in a moment of crisis. This dad wasn't curious. He was having a crisis. His son was sick. He had tried everything else, and he was at the end of his rope. He knew there was no other chance. In college football, we would call this the Hail Mary, the offering that last solution. Now, I enjoy watching college football, but if I was to be honest, I could skip the first 3.5 quarters of most every football game I watch and just turn on that last 5 minutes. It's going to last 30 minutes, but to turn on that last 5 minutes, because you're going to see two teams that are at the point of desperation. They're at the point of there is nothing else left to do. We're going to give it our all. We're going to pull out all the stops. We're going to give it everything we've got. The man's at his last moments. He's in a crisis. He's tried everything else. He doesn't know what else to do. And he says, I've heard there's a man named Jesus who can offer me something. He goes on to say in verse 49, Sir, come down before my child dies. The Greek makes it more emphatic, more pleading, more begging. Sir, please come down. My son's about to die. I need you. There's nothing else that's going to work. Please come. And he goes from that crisis of faith to Jesus answering him. And it's amazing what he says here, because it's almost like a switch flips in his mind. Verse 50, Jesus said to him, Go, your son will live. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. He went from a crisis of faith to being confident in his faith. He went from, I don't know what to do, to believing what Jesus said. Jesus didn't give him a sermon. Jesus didn't even pray for his son. Jesus just simply said, Go, your son will live. Such a simple, easy thing. But it was something that was challenging for him because it's not what he asked. See, the official's request was, Jesus, come with me. Jesus, come heal my son. I need you to come and see him. I need you to come spend time with him. I need you to make him better. That means you need to come with me. Stop what you're doing and come with me. That's what he was expecting. But Jesus shows us when he is Lord of all, he is also Lord of all things and includes space and time. And Jesus just says, he's better. You can go home now. It wasn't the way that the man was expecting. A lot of times we ask God to do things in our life and we have in our minds, we have in our own hearts these ideas or these things that God, I need you to answer my prayers this way. This is what I need you to do for me. And we tell God, this is how you can answer my prayer. God, this is how you can make my life better. God, this is how you can fix everything in my life. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about who God is, right? Then we're telling God how to do his job. God, if you'll just do this, then everything's going to be better for me. The God who created us, who knows us, who cares about us and loves us and wants what's best for us. When we realize that and recognize that, we would just say, God, all right, you know the problem. You know how to fix it best. And sometimes that answer is, I'm going to let you stay in that for a little bit longer. I'm going to let you deal with it a little bit longer than you want, a little bit longer than you think you need to handle it. Because I'm going to show you that it's not just simply me, or not just an answer that you need, but you need me in your life. And that's what he does. He doesn't answer the way we expect, or the way we expect, but he does what only he can do. Jesus is not obligated to answer us the way we expect him to answer us. He gets to do it his way. See, but God is challenging, but God is also comforting. It was good enough for him to feel like he was heard and provided comfort. He simply heard, all right, you said it was going to be done, I'm going to believe you. Jesus didn't give him what he wanted, but Jesus gave him what he needed. A lot of times we say, God, this is what I want. But we really ask God, God, what do I need? He said, this is what you need. He believed him. But what did he believe in? The man believed the word of Jesus. That's where our confident faith can come from. Not in our circumstances, not in life being easy, not in life being cancer-free or pain-free or trouble-free, but we can believe in Jesus simply because he offers us his word. And for this man, he became confident. But his confidence wasn't left. His confidence became confirmed faith. Because he did what Jesus said, he went on home. In verse 51 through 53, as he was going down, his servants met him and told him his son was recovering. So he asked them that hour that he began to get better, and they said to him, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. The father knew that it was the hour when Jesus had said to him, your son will live. And he himself believed. See, he didn't just believe once, he believed again. His confident faith became a confirmed faith. He walked away and he got to his servants. His servants were there and said, hey, we've heard, just want you to know your son's better. He's like, what time did that happen? Well, it happened during the 7th hour. And the man realized, that's when Jesus told me your son's going to be better. See, he believed the word, but then he was confirmed in his belief. He again heard it and saw that this was Jesus acting. This time it's confirmed. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't luck. It wasn't karma. But it was the Son of God. If we believe in God and his word, then there is no such thing, in my opinion, as chance or luck or karma. See, God is sovereign over all things. He is in control of all things. He has wisdom and knowledge over all things. And when he speaks and he knows what's best, he will bring about those things. It is not by chance or by luck or by karma that things happen. It is because we have a sovereign God who is in control of all things. And he is in control, and he confirms our faith. That gives us the ability to say he is over those things. When the storms come, they produce growth in us. Even though bad things happen to us, our circumstances get difficult. See, God uses those circumstances to grow our faith, to make us stronger in what we believe. One theologian has said that the greatest times of growth usually happen during the hardest circumstances in our life. Sometimes God really just needs us to pay attention and to grow. See, things don't grow when it's easy. Things don't grow when they're not challenged. And that's true of us. We don't grow if we are not put into pressure circumstances. And God takes those times of pressure, those times that are hard, and it's hard to say, well, gee, God, I want more suffering. We shouldn't walk out of here saying, God, just give me harder circumstances. But we should recognize that when those things do happen, it's for a purpose. It's for a growth in our life. That if we will trust in him to see that he is doing those things, he will grow us in a way that only he can do. And then he goes on from that confirmed faith to have a contagious faith. The father knew the hour Jesus said to him, your son will live, and he himself believed, and all his household. See, he didn't just take his faith and keep it to himself. He made sure his family knew about it. He made sure those in his household heard about what Jesus had done for him. That when we have a faith that is growing, that means it's not just growing inside of us, but it's growing inside of us, but it's growing outside of us as well. There are people around us who know what God is doing in our life. They know what God is growing in us and doing in us, and they want to be a part of that because they see what God is doing. It's important for us to share those things that God does. See, a growing faith becomes a contagious faith. It spreads easily, and it's not just growing for our own sake, but it's growing in us, for those around us, to be a continuous faith. It's to continue on outside of us, contagious and continuous. In verse 54, now there was a second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. See, Jesus didn't do just one sign. He was doing a second sign. And we know he did a second sign because he's going to do a third sign. It's something that continues on. In our faith, it's not meant to be a one-time thing. See, we're not on a faith point. We're on a faith path. That we're always moving in one direction or another. And as we follow after him, we should continue on. We should continue moving. We should continue growing. We should continue pushing to say, all right, what is next? That we are spreading our faith with those around us, and then we are helping them continue that faith where they are sharing it and saying, who is coming next? Who is coming after us? Who are we passing on this opportunity to grow in Jesus and to become more like him? See, our faith is not just about us. Our faith and the path we are on is about those who will come behind us. It's about those who will follow after us, who will lead when we're gone. Because someday, at some point, some storm is going to wipe us off the map. It's going to take away our life on this earth. But it does not mean that it's going to take away our life or our eternity with Jesus. And there are lives that are going to come after us, and we need to point them to Jesus so they can walk faithfully with Jesus as well. See, we are all on a path. And the Christian construction, in my summation, the Christian construction that we are called to do will result in reproduction. That there are people who come behind us that continue on the faith after us. See, construction means it keeps on going. It keeps on happening. That is a good thing. We are building and we are making our church, the body around us, better. That's what we're called to do in faith. So this morning I would ask you a couple simple questions. Where are you on your faith journey? Where are you in that point in your life? Are you in the curious stage? Or are you in the crisis moments? Are you in the confident or confirmed faith? Or is your faith contagious and continuous? To realize where you're going, you first have to evaluate where you're at. And if you're asking yourself, where am I today? It's an important question. The next question is, where am I headed? Which direction am I heading? How am I getting to be more like Jesus? Are you building your faith or are you breaking your faith? Are you building it up? Are you moving to that contagious, continuous, or are you moving towards the curious, the crisis? See, it's important for us to recognize where we're at and where we are heading. Those are hard things to do, but those are important things to do because what we realize in faith is that our salvation is not about what we do. It's not about how hard we work. It's not about what we do. As we took the Lord's Supper earlier, it is a reminder that what Jesus has already done for us. Our faith is not something we have to work towards. It's simply something we surrender to say, Jesus, I can't do it on my own. I need you to come beside me. I need you to step into my life and to do what only you can do. That's a growing faith, a contagious faith, a continuous faith. As a church body, we have to pray and we have to think about how do we continue moving forward? How do we continue to grow and follow after what God has called us to do? I've been here 2.5 months, maybe 3 months now, and things are moving, and we are moving in a good direction. We're following after God. We're going to make Jesus the primary thing. And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some changes, and no one likes change in church. I understand that. But one of the things that is starting here and thinking through and having the opportunity, the blessing, the storm, whatever you want to call it, was that I came into a church where there was not a lot of consistency in staffing, right? There's been some turnover in the past year. And one of those questions that I've had, and several of you have asked, I'm sure, and maybe asked publicly, maybe asked privately, when are we going to get some more people here? How are we going to do that? And that's a process. It takes time. One of those things that's just in my experience and checking with other staffing agencies that are out there for churches, the typical staffing agency will say that to get a youth pastor, discipleship pastor, someone else to come into church, the process, the time it's taking now in most lives of the church is about 18 months to 2 years. That's a long time. That's a very hard process. But God is good, and we don't have to always wait for difficult things. So I'd like to introduce you to our candidates for a minister of youth and discipleship. The personnel committee and myself would like to present to you and offer you the chance to get to know Griffin Schollenberger on October 15th and October 14th, that weekend. And him and his family will be here for a preview weekend. As you walk out today, you will be able to grab one of these pieces of paper, this flyer that introduces you to him. Griffin is currently serving and living in the Florida, Brandon area. And so he will be joining us in a couple weeks, and there is an opportunity for lots of different groups of you to get to know him. He will be sharing his testimony during that morning service on the 15th in October. And so I would encourage you to make as much as your ability and the schedule allows for your abilities to be a part of. We would love for you to be a part of it and get to know Griffin, because I think he's going to be a great addition to our staff and our team here. And the personnel committee and myself are very excited that God is moving faster and quicker than the average time it would take for us to normally get here. And so we're excited about what God's doing. We're excited about the direction he is headed. And so sometimes storms come, but sometimes it's also easier. But Jesus is Lord no matter what. And that's what we get to take away today, church, that he is God and he is good. Will you bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Father, I thank you for loving us. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you today, to know that you are a God who watches over us. Lord, a God who sets us on a faith journey. That faith journey is a path that you've called each and every person to. And Lord, I pray that you would help us to realize, to see where we are at, to recognize where we are currently at in our relationship with you. Lord, for those who may be far away from you today, I pray that you would help us to draw closer, to recognize our faith is not based on our works or what we do or anything we have to offer, but is simply because of your Son, Jesus. Lord, I pray that as we have this time of invitation, if there is anyone here today who has not followed after you, who has never recognized their place on this faith journey, comes because of their gift of Jesus Christ, that you would help them to come down this morning, to talk to myself, to one of the deacons or ministers down front, to say, I need Jesus in my life. Lord, as we have this time of invitation, Lord, also for some of us who have made that decision, who've recognized Jesus as Lord, but we are moving in the wrong direction. Our faith journey is not headed to being contagious and continuous. Lord, I pray that you would help us to see that you have called us to that we are called to pass along that faith, and that you would do what only you could do in our lives as we recommit to following after you today, Father. Lord, it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Will you stand and sing as we